Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the Midlands Parks Forum for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm going to be speaking about improving access to parks for women and girls. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because a recent study conducted by the University of Sheffield conducted an analysis of 6 years of data. That's over 60,000 adults across England. That was data that was collected as part of our monitor for engagement with the natural environment. And that study concluded at a population level that women are more likely to be infrequent users of the natural environment, alongside the other predictors that are much more well known. Whilst there isn't a comparative study at the population level of young people, we do know that at a peak point in the life course, there is a disconnection with nature. And in particular, studies have shown that there is a drop-off rate in teenage girls' use of parks. And we also know from recent research that the teenage facilities and provision that is provided in these spaces do cater more for teenage boys' interests, who are the predominant users of these facilities. And so I'm speaking about this today from a safety perspective, because one of the key barriers that women and girls face in using parks and green spaces relate to safety concerns. And this is what our research and new guidance have sought to address. So our research looked at women and girls' views on safety in parks and green spaces, and new guidance was developed from this research, working with a range of partners, as you can see on this slide, from Make Space for Girls, Green Flag Award and Keep Britain Tidy, and West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So whilst it's me standing up here, this was a genuinely collaborative project. So I've said that safety is a barrier. Now we know from data from the Office of National Statistics that women and girls feel less safe in parks than they do in other types of public spaces, including streets, high streets, on public transport, train stations, and so forth. And there are stark gendered inequalities. So we know that women are 3 times less likely to feel safe in a park during the day. That's about 1 in 6 women across the country. And 4 out of 5 women don't feel safe in parks after dark. And this isn't just nighttime as we think about it. This is early mornings in winter months. We know the clocks have just gone back. And afternoons, times where women and girls said they would like to use these spaces or travel through these spaces. These are obviously key connecting routes in our towns and our cities, and so active travel is obviously a really important part of that. And our perceptions really matter, because we can all have 15 minutes access to a park or green space, but if that space doesn't feel safe to use, we will avoid it with a wide angle. And this is what girls were telling us. They were telling us that they had a park on their doorstep, but actually their parents gave them pocket money to go to another park that was further away. So this has a real impact on the lives of people going about their journeys in towns and cities, where parks are these key connecting routes, but also in terms of the physical and mental health benefits and access that is really important in facilitating and making sure these benefits are realised. So we sought to, under this context, we sought to address this through research, looking at the views and experiences of women and girls in terms of what makes a park feel safe or unsafe. And we spoke to a really diverse group of women, girls, and professionals involved in designing, managing, policing these spaces across West Yorkshire. Our findings are in this report, so I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. So what makes a park feel safe or unsafe? So we started with looking at a wide range of factors from the literature that has given us an insight into this area already. And the determinants of perceived safety and fear in these spaces range from really wide societal issues that are outside of the park, things like the culture, of and attitudes towards women and girls, experiences of harassment and so forth, which pervade all aspects of public spaces, to the specifics of how parks are designed and managed, whether there are exits, whether there's staffing, whether there's CCTV, lighting, the facilities that are in a space. So there's a whole cross-section of potential factors that could influence our perceptions of safety. And what we did is we sought to actually find out what are the factors that matter most to women and girls in terms of shaping their perceptions of safety. Are there, because we're not a homogenous group, are there things that we agree on or make a park feel safe? Are there things or areas of divergence in our views? So we turned these factors into a whole series of statements, like familiar parks feel safer, more lighting in parks would make me feel safer, and so forth. And we asked women and girls who are experts in their own sense of safety, one navigating public spaces day in, day out, changing their routines and so forth, or using the spaces that feel safer, to rank these according to their own views and lived experiences. And from this, we identified 3 broad viewpoints. So women and girls don't think in the same way about safety. There are things that matter more to some women than they do to others. I'm not going to go through the 3 viewpoints, but you can read those in the report. What I do want to emphasise is that there was a lot of agreement and consensus amongst women as to what would make these spaces feel safer. So take a moment to think to yourself, what is the thing that women all agreed on would make a park feel safer? Let's see if you're right. The presence of other women. So the presence of other women in a park is a signal that this is a safe space. And this was the highest degree of consensus amongst women in terms of all of those factors that you saw on that slide. And it was also perceived to create these kind of positive feedback loops. So the more women that were using the space was encouraging other women to use the space. So the single best thing that can be done to make parks feel safe for women and girls is to design them with their diverse needs and interests in mind, to encourage women to use the spaces, who in turn will signal a positive sense that this is a safe space. So you can see on the slide, I'm not going to read out all the quotes, but these will tell you some of the lived experiences and views. But what were they telling us then? So they were telling us that one of the challenges is not just safety, but actually that parks need to be better designed to meet their diverse needs and interests. Things that would encourage them into the space, facilities and activities that would appeal to them, diverse provision, toilets, and so forth, social seating, particularly amongst girls, age-appropriate provision. A second core area of consensus, and this harks back to lots of studies, you know, if anyone's into Jane Jacobs and so forth, but a well-used park feels safer, and this was a key area of consensus. So this is about activation of the space. And women were scheduling their visits according to when they thought the park was busier, or when they knew there was an organised activity going on, like park run and so forth, as you can see on this slide, because there's lots of people there who I could potentially go to if there were help available. Another area of consensus amongst women was that organised activities feel safer and extend their use of these spaces. So things that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own, running around a park after dark and so forth, but actually providing running groups or other forms of exercise or walking groups and so forth. And so women felt safer using the park sometimes in these as part of these organised activities. But we know parks are social and communal spaces, but they're also places for solitude. So they're not going to kind of deal with everything. But also, if there are regular activities in these spaces, they also provide, as you saw on the previous slide, spaces that are busier, which feel safer. So I'm just going to show you a very quick video of one of the walking groups that took part in the wider project.
There are groups trying to change things. In Wakefield, this walking group meets every week. It's for everyone, but it's encouraged a lot more women to get out and enjoy the local parks and green spaces.
If I went out for a walk on my own, I would let people know that I was going out, what sort of time I was going to be back, and if I was walking, I may just sort of walk more in the town centre rather than in the park. particularly if there weren't many people about.
But then you're missing out on the green space.
Yes, yeah, and that's something I really enjoy. But you do feel you miss out sometimes as a woman on your own.
We know being in nature helps our physical and mental health, so it makes sense to get all of us using green spaces. But will there be enough change so women feel these are also safe spaces?
So this was a really great programme. It was a programme of activities, including menopause mayhem, TikTok treks for teenage girls, appealing to a whole wide, diverse range of women and girls, scheduled activities at different times to reach working women who would maybe use the park after dark. So it's facilitating that access across the day and in different seasons. Oops, there we go. Another core area of agreement amongst women is that what came out as really kind of particularly important is that women and girls scan their environment for signs of potential threat. And teenage girls are constantly thinking about, how do I escape from a potentially threatening situation? So if you put them in a multi-use games area, which is fenced and with one exit, they're just thinking, how do I get out of this space? And so what they want is for parks managers, those who are designing these spaces, to engage with them about how they see these spaces and how the spaces can be better designed with safety in mind to meet their needs. So thinking about the traditional things that a lot of landscape designers think about: visibility, the ability to see and be seen, for teenage girls, the ability to escape, so thinking about how we design facilities, but also teenage girls were consensus in their views that they felt safer at the edges of these spaces, so thinking about the permeability of these boundaries, thinking about lighting and other aspects. Ways of getting help in parks really mattered to women and girls. So girls favoured more park staff. I know there are funding challenges around this, and girls favoured the use of help points in parks. Women and girls agreed that they couldn't rely on other people to intervene in these spaces as well. So promoting active bystander training to park users, volunteer groups, park staff, and so forth. And thinking about a kind of gender balance in relation to this as well. So there are a whole range of barriers. As I said, women and girls aren't a homogenous group. We are a diverse group, and there are barriers relating to age, religion, and so forth that people were telling us. So we really think that when you're doing these walks around parks with women and girls, that there is a real need to have diversity there. One of the main messages they wanted to get through in the research was that to remove the burden that women and girls often do in terms of avoiding these spaces or going with others, and to actually create wider change in this area. So a lot of women and girls didn't actually favour these mobile phone tracking apps. They felt, actually nature is for freedom, nature is for relaxation, and the idea that I have to walk around with an app to track my safety didn't appeal to a lot of them. But there is a lot we can do in the parks and green space sector, and we've tried to use this research and the lived experiences of women to translate this into a set of guidance that parks managers, police officers and design out crime officers can use and apply in these spaces, working with women and girls. We've also looked at a wider range of evidence that exist and consulted with parks managers, architects, landscape architects, planners, academics, neighbourhood policing, friends of groups in the development of this guidance, which focuses on 3 core themes: Eyes on the Park, awareness and inclusion. And Eyes on a Park kind of address the things that I was talking about earlier in relation to how safety is fostered by this constant mixed presence of people and activity in spaces, which is crucial to a sense of safety. Awareness addresses the kind of design issues that can enhance our awareness and sense of safety, our ability to be seen, escape and navigate intuitively. And inclusion focuses on belonging and inclusion in this space, that we're designing these facilities that meets the diverse needs and interests of women and girls across that wide intersectional lens there. Because actually safety is really linked to belonging and inclusion. If we feel that a space is designed with our needs in mind and our interests in mind, we feel safer in that space. So under those three core themes are 10 principles: busyness and activation, staffing, visibility, escape, lighting, wayfinding, belonging and familiarity, image, access and location, and co-production. These are all illustrated in the guidance, but this is going to be a bit of a sales pitch for our workshop this afternoon. We're going to go through how we can think about these principles and apply them looking around the Chester House estate. And so thinking about what are the issues in relation to how we can actually make the change and apply these in practice. The guidance also includes 10 case studies and a wide range of smaller examples to give a really good diverse range of inspiration about what you can do to make a difference and to get started in this area. And they're case studies that represent all the different types of principles that we've outlined there, from design ones to activation ones and so forth. And there's a whole host of quick wins as well. So each principle you can find things that you can start on this journey immediately. So I want to thank our partners, Make Space for Girls, Green Flag Award and Keep Britain Tidy, and West Yorkshire Combined Authority. And you can find the guidance, which is supplementary guidance to the Green Flag Award criteria, on the Resources Hub, which the email is there. Do I have 1 minute to show a video? And this is a final video to sum it up.